To light up our hearts in kindness, just taking a moment of presence. And then I suggest, Ben, that you take us along. But let's just be silent for a minute and really sense this, look at us all here, which is really grateful and, yeah, opening up our hearts and minds and senses. And I'd love you to welcome us and bring us into the circle also, as in your beautiful way. So
Yes.
knowing that you know many of the guests here.
Yes, welcome everybody. It's very auspicious, really, and very challenging time. It's the 19th of May. It's 1 month prior to the beginning of World Unity Week, coming into its second year, and we're really honored to have so many of you co-conveners and ambassadors joining us. Welcome, Brother Rocky Dawuni. Great to see that you could make it, brother. And Gidon Bromberg from Eco Peace, John Raymer, welcome. And to Marilyn Hamilton and to everybody, Efrat. I mean, really welcome to everybody. John Raymer, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. So there's commitment, there's great commitment here. And it's tremendous to see Ambassador Anil Trigunayat, one of the real supporters for Unity Earth and a very wise global diplomat. Boy, we need your diplomacy. All over the world right now, there are great tensions. It's also wonderful to have Patrick Carolyn with us on this call, and Eliyahu McLean. Wonderful to see you. Thank you for joining us at this discussion today. We are inevitably going to be drawn to some of the challenges of the conflict that is happening in Israel and Palestine, particularly with Gidon and Eliyahu and others who are here to share about as great peacemakers and peacemakers who have had decades of working for peace in that region. We're very honored to have you, and it's an issue we can't avoid. Now, there are troubles in Ethiopia, and there is tribalism is rife all over the world in one form or another. And yet, the current situation and in some senses the heart of the world there in the Middle East is something that we are, going to embrace and dive into, and very respectfully and very, sort of with fear and trembling, have this conversation together, which needs to be had. We are tremendously honored to have Michael Stillwater here with us, and we are going to open up today. And I heard Michael doing a little test before. I can tell you, couldn't be more appropriate, the music that Michael is going to share with us. So if we can just take a deep breath, and let's feel into the space that we are here together in. And Brother Michael, over to you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here with you today. And the song I'm going to sing is called Shanti Alleluia. The words are of peace from different traditions. It's Shanti Alleluia Shalom Asalam. And another phrase is, let peace enlighten all the world. And so it's like a chant, and I'll be repeating these lines. And of course, you're welcome to listen to it, but I also invite you, because you'll see it's very simple, if you feel to add your voice to it where you are. But because of Zoom, we stay muted. Otherwise, it would sound rather cacophonous. However, during this chant, there's a point that I will do a period where I'm just repeating, let peace enlighten all the world. And during that time, I have an invitation, which is any of you who wish to unmute and just speak out where you are in the world. And the point of this is it's recognizing that, as we all know who are here, that peace begins, it has to begin with us, right where we are. And so as we speak our city or our country, we're also kind of speaking out the intention of peace right where we are in our community, beginning with us. So that's just an offer. If you wish to unmute during that time, so you would unmute and then mute again, because if we have too much unmuting, it starts to create feedbacks and so forth. So, and it's okay if several people unmute at the same time. There's no worries. But just to speak your city or country if you wish. Okay? Shanti, Alleluia, Shalom, Assalam. Shanti, Alleluia, Shalom, Assalam. Shanti, Alleluia, Shalom, Assalam. Shanti, Alleluia, Shalom, Assalam. Shalom, Alleluia. Assalam, Assalam, 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 Assalam. Let peace enlighten all the world. 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 Feel free to share where you are. Let peace enlighten all the world.
Rijnland, Nederland.
Lindhorn Tese community.
Enlighten
All
all the world.
Lietuva.
Germany.
Let
Amsterdam, Netherlands.
Utrecht, Netherlands.
Quebec.
Ukraine, Germany.
Lithuania.
南通
Maine.
Sinai Peninsula, Egypt.
上海中国
Let peace enlighten all the world.
On earth, earth.
Peace in the Middle East.
Enlighten all the world. Let peace
Melbourne, Australia.
enlighten all the world.
Mexico.
Shanti Alleluia, Shalom Asalam. Shanti Alleluia, Shalom Asalam. Shanti Alleluia, Shalom Asalam. Shanti Alleluia, Shalom Asalam. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Wonderful. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for that beautiful, deep, soulful, communal beginning. I can't imagine a better way to begin this gathering than with you and your song. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Becky, for connecting us and for bringing you along today. Really beautiful. So, Anna Marie, we had plans for this meeting, which we've altered, and we are really gathering. I want to welcome Pramaha Bunshwe from Chiang Mai in Thailand. Welcome, Ajahn. It's great to have you with us in this space. And I believe Salman Chishty is here too, perhaps not on video, but I saw him come into the room before. And this is one of two assemblies today. So then the second assembly is for the US time zone, and that will be at 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So this is the first of two meetings. But this one really is for the time zone across the Middle East and Africa, Europe, India, Thailand, and UK. And so we are 1 month prior to World Unity Week, and we have a terrible crisis unfolding in the Middle East. Gidon Bromberg is a World Unity Week ambassador. He is the Israeli director for EcoPeace Middle East, and has many years experience. I think 25-year anniversary for EcoPeace last year, so 26 year this year of working on these issues, and not only working on the issues between Israel, Palestine, and Jordan, but also working on the environmental aspects, and particularly with water. And their work of ecological peace building is an inspiration for all of us. And EcoPeace was the host for our Holy Land Living Water adventure in 2020, which was an incredibly deep and meaningful experience for everyone who was there. So Gidon, I really want to open up with you, if you would, today. And yes, this is a public conversation, but what can you tell us about what you're seeing, about what's happening in the Middle East, and where does the hope lie, and anything else you want to share about what's unfolding at this time?
So thank you, Ben, and thank you all for coming together and really conveying from your hearts the desire and the need and the urgency for peace and for world unity. My heart bleeds, I think, like all hearts are currently bleeding when seeing the tragic loss of innocent life the implications of another round of violence, of such brutal violence that we see in the region, not only between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, but also within Israel, between Jews and Arabs, that we've seen terrible violence there to also take place. I mean, my words here are words of, when the bombs fall, it's a reflection of how we have failed. Because of course, all our efforts are to prevent the violence from breaking out and more loss of innocent life, as we've seen over these last 9 days. Our prayers are for an immediate ceasefire and a call again for healing, a call and renewed investment and determination to rebuild and to repair not only the physical, but very much the internal within us all. At EcoPeace, we stand united. We reject the violence, and we're as determined as we have remained determined over these last 26 years to continue our efforts of environmental peace building. These days tear us apart from within because we all are exposed to very singular media. We all have loved ones that are deeply affected, and we struggle with the emotions that we currently have to endure. But we continue to invest internally to keep that strength and that power that we do have, and that you all help us in conveying that power to a broader spectrum, to a broader audience, because we have absolutely no doubt that our work is more important than ever, that the forces that divide us have to be confronted, and that confrontation is a confrontation of mind, of spirit, of will, and of work. Because at EcoPeace, we believe that in the end, people's livelihoods have to be impacted. People's livelihoods need to be improved. People's realities on the ground need to be improved if we're to build the type of societies that we desire in our troubled region. So when we look forward to World Unity Week, we see it as an essential opportunity to rebuild, to in no way ignore, to discuss the tragedies that we've been through again, but nevertheless to focus on concrete steps as to how we can move forward. And at EcoPeace, at the end of last year, we launched a call for a green-blue deal, and it's a document that really speaks of opportunities. It turns the reality basically on its head, because generally people see the climate crisis and the challenges and the differences amongst us as threats to our existence. We see them as opportunities. We see them as wake-up calls that we must work together, that we must look out for our neighbor as much as we look out for ourselves, because we are in the same boat. We share the same region. We share the same water resources and the same environment. And when one fails, we all fail. We've seen that in the last Gaza war. Last time this happened, we saw when no electricity or so little electricity was available in Gaza, the ramifications didn't just stop in Gaza. And the impact and demise was, of course, first and foremost on 2 million Palestinians in Gaza, but were carried with the currents, were carried with the groundwater, also to Israeli communities with implications of loss on both sides. And if we don't see a return of electricity almost immediately, we're going to see the same repercussions taking place as they took place then in the next days. And Gaza is down to just 4 hours of electricity a day from 16 hours before this last round. And we're seeing about 100,000 cubic meters of raw sewage flowing in the streets of Gaza, flowing into the Mediterranean, polluting, causing disease. And that pollution and that disease is not stopped by these man-made political borders that have been drawn. And that's our message. That's our mandate as Echo Peace. We, as Ben mentioned, because we're close to 3 decades involved in this conflict and working by the hour to try to do what we can, we're well aware of the hatred and of the animosity and of the fear that is in so many of the hearts of our peoples and of people around the world. And we think that one way, and it's not the only way, but one way to try to challenge that hate and that fear and turn it into, in the first realm, an understanding that fear and that hate only leads to more loss. And it's a lose-lose. And that the only way to turn things around is to understand more fully the consequences of the simple fact that we're interconnected. We're interconnected between Israel and Palestine and Jordan and the broader Middle East and the broader globe. And the more we can bring that message home through the help, through the audience that this important week will bring forward, then we can continue to impact. And we know that we have had tremendous impacts, even though in the end, another round of violence does show our failure, but it doesn't mean that we give up. It doesn't mean that we can allow those in leadership, and we have tremendously failed leadership in our region and in much of the world that has that continues to allow this loss, this horror to take place. But we're not deterred. We must never be deterred. And we see the week of world unity as a necessary effort, an opportunity to wake up, to remind ourselves, to understand, to find, to move from hate to love, but through practical steps of improving the reality on the ground so that people see benefits, so that it's more than words. It must be more than words because people are suffering. People need to see an improvement on the ground. And we think that our little contribution of a green-blue deal for the Middle East, where by moving forward and gaining your support, your adoption of this blueprint of environmental peace building will help us see more water in every Palestinian home, sewerage being treated, livelihoods being improved by new opportunities that are all about cooperation. Cooperation not for its own sake, cooperation to improve the reality on the ground of all sides, to build trust, and through trust, we think that we can achieve the peace that we and all of you and the whole world so desperately desires. So that's some opening thoughts on my side as to why we think we're a month away and we have a lot of work to do, but the week ahead is a critical week to empower, to inspire, to give hope, but to also, most importantly, to see improvement on the ground so that people's lives are impacted for the better. That must be our common objective.
Thank you, Gidon. Thank you. Thank you so much. We're so grateful that you are there and that Eco Peace is there, and the Palestinian director and Yana and the Jordanian director, Nada and the Jordanian director Yana. The work that your teams are doing is definitely a beacon of hope. Thank you for that opening statement. We're wanting to be very real with the situation, and so having you sharing that from the very epicenter of this conflict is really, really important for us. And we're grateful for your presence and your time. And we have a lot of people here that are really connected. Eliyahu McLean is a peacemaker who's been there. We definitely want to hear from Eliyahu. We have a peace ambassador and a global diplomat and thought leader in Ambassador Anil Trigunayat, who's writing about these issues. We definitely want to hear from you. And of course, our brother Salman Chishty, Syed Salman Chishty, who's a very passionate and also a very extraordinary man of peace with his lineage from Ajmer in India. There are many, and Efrat Shalom there also with the deep prayer that you're bringing for peace in the Holy Land. There is a spectrum, from the strategic to the spiritual and the interrelation of all of these things, and all of it belongs on the same side here. And my hope is that we can, through this process of building up to world unity, we connect and empower each other right along that spectrum, from the spiritual sustenance all the way through to the very strategic, such as what EcoPeace is doing and everything in between. And Anna Marie.
Yes, I would like to add to that. Thank you very much, Gidon. Also, that we are speaking of that week, and we are in the design and building up. So I'm listening also, and I hope you all are listening also to, okay, so how does this impact our design in a way that we can really be in that space of one world and practice together and manifest and do whatever we can be doing. So Gidon, in that sense also, it's about June, and it's about these weeks that we are coming together to explore how we can already start to put things into place so that we can be a full support of all life forms that are here to be addressed.
So I would have a concrete suggestion, and maybe we can take, maybe during the week of World Unity Week, we could identify a project. We could identify perhaps a school, perhaps two schools, one on either side. And I'm not trying to compare, and I'm not trying to speak to who's suffering more, because I think there's no point in that. But I think if we can invest in improving the reality, take on, we can think about it more deeply, but take on something reasonable that can impact the lives of people on the ground, and utilize the week in order to do that. In order to having agreed on something very specific, and either utilize the week to raise the finances for it. At EcoPeace, we recently refurbished a school in Gaza with renewable energy and wastewater treatment and reuse, increased water supply, and introduced a new curriculum. Perhaps perhaps we could take another school, another two schools on either side of the border. Sadly, school infrastructure kindergartens have been hit. Perhaps we could take on some projects like those that speak to not only our concern, but our commitment to improving the reality on the ground.
Yes, we can look into that, but maybe we first want to hear now. But Ben, you might want to see how we can bring in other perspectives and practice these conversations in that sense here, and see how we can support that also with keeping our hearts open, lit in kindness, and really listening deeply with respect.
Yeah, thank you, Anna Marie. And it really is it's a privilege to be here. I feel the sense of gravity in this space, and we know on some of our chat groups during the week there were some very intense discussions with various points of view being passionately expressed. And so this invitation to come together and have this dialogue as peacemakers, as people of the heart across that spectrum, is a very rich one. And I know there are some people that have joined from Africa and from other parts of the world, from Thailand and from other contexts here, as we look towards World Unity Week in a month. And yet this feels like an issue that is a universal one. And so I feel it's important for us to go with that. Brother Salman Chishty, just to perhaps, as we open up continue to open up this space. Maybe just some opening words from you and an opening prayer of peace for you, and we can come back to some more dialogue as we go through. But I would definitely love to hear your opening remarks once you come off mute.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيد المرسلين ورحمة للعالمين. Salam, shalom, prayer of peace. This time we won't be starting with the greeting of peace, but prayer of peace, because more than greeting, it's prayers that are required at this challenging times and testing times, not for only those people who are on the ground. They're facing extreme violence, but all of us, because I truly believe that the opening healing music that came from Michael, it's straight from his heart and his soul that is feeling so deeply in whichever part of the world that he is. And the remarks by Brother Gidon that he feels the urgency and need to share those feelings and also take initiatives for healing. I still remember Brother Gidon's words and his feeling when we were all together at the pilgrimage, and when he learned that I couldn't get the visa to go to the Holy Land, and he really felt it, and he tried to, do something, but then it was already too late, and for the second time we couldn't get that thing. So it's a real feeling that is being shared with all of us, between all of us. It's truly a feel. That's the real importance of feeling among the family, that no matter which part of the world, wherever you are, it's something is troubling. It's like our own body. If any part of the body is injured, or if the pain is felt throughout the body, it's not only that particular part. So this is our world, that any part of the world, and if there is any sorts of violence, injuries, we all feel, because that's the purpose of our creation. That's why we are here, and that's why the divine light has brought us all together. It was not just a coincidence, not by chance, that we all met in Delhi a few years back with Ben, and now that we are here. Everything has a reason, and everything is building upon building, as the light upon light bring us closer to the divine realities. At the same time, the practicality of the situation at hand needs to be discussed openly, not with silent measures, silent words, but also need to be acknowledged that the grave danger that lies ahead if we are not being able to overcome these violences, because it is not the present generation, this is the near future generation that is also going to be affected, not only in Gaza or Israel or Palestine, or the violence. I appreciate the suggestion about taking up the renovation in school, which Brother Gidon has suggested. Obviously, that should be one of the concerns, but not at the cost of getting them bombed again. We have to look at the possibilities of coming together collectively, as we are coming spiritually, but also in a physical realm, in the sense that whichever country or organization, we are all connected. There has to be a collective effort to send the message very clear to both sides, that no escalations, no violence, and no loss of life is acceptable to the world, because it's not only the Palestinian or the Israeli life that's been lost, it is the loss for the whole world. And this is same for any part of the world. So what needs to be done as of now? As we had exchanged some notes in the group as well, that Brother Eliyahu, I respect all his sentiments, all his reasons, all his explanations, and his personal experiences of violences that has happened in the past. But we have to move ahead, and we have to understand the present. We cannot be quoting 70s or the 80s or the 90s to to kind of give any room to what is happening today. So Brother Gidon can also suggest, and we all can collectively look up to the options or the solution to put forth, maybe from the Unity Earth platform, that immediate ceasefire is essential to any peace dialogues. If no matter how we talk or how many letters we exchange, if it is continuous violence and the lives are lost, then all our efforts seems to be losing the relevance. It's so heartening. The tears won't stop when we see those images coming from Jerusalem, from the Beit al-Muqaddas, from the Haram Sharif during the last days of Ramadan. Whatever the provocation, they might be protesting about Sheikh Jarrah, evacuation of the annexation of the Sheikh Jarrah, whatever they were doing, but in no sense this brutal fire of maybe it was bullet-coated rubbers, the rubber-coated bullets, whatever they were, but on the people who were praying, it should not be acceptable to either side, because the majority of the peace-loving peace builders are there on the either side. It's just a minority who are engaged in violence, not the majority. It's a minority who is engaged in that kind of violence. So the majority should come together to maybe put a resolution or something, that the sacred spaces must be respected. All the confrontations, everything can be done outside if there is a warrant required for that, but not to be accepted into, at least inside the sacred sanctum where prayers were held. We all went there together. We did our prayers. In fact, I was able to get in to the Haram Sharif only because of our brother Rabbi Gabriel. If he wouldn't be there, I might have been stopped multiple times to get inside. I don't know if brother Gabriel is here in the gathering or brother Eliyahu is there. But I think the prayers is, of course, of healing and to immediately end the violence. I think if that happens, then only we can proceed with some credible and impactful action on the ground, whether we're talking about reaching out to the children, reaching out to the schools, but if the violence and the bombing continues, all our effort will just go down in just fraction of a second, as we have seen on the images that are coming in. Years and years of peace building can't stand even few minutes or few hours of provocation. So annexations of things that are happening at the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood must be stopped, must be collectively supported, that it shouldn't, nobody should be evacuated from their houses from any side of the world, any place of the world. Nobody can ask people to leave, whatever the reasons of provocations would be. So I think if that comes into reality, 2 days back, India had an official stand. Ambassador Anil would be able to more shed a light on that. But at the UN Security Council, India put up a stand for the just cause of Palestinian and the two-state solution as per the UN guidelines, and also mentioned about the sacredness of Jerusalem for Indians as the millions of pilgrims that go to the Zawiya Al-Hind, where we are all welcomed by the Ansari family for an evening of iftar. We all went there together to pay our respect to Baba Farid, the Sufi saint, the meditation cell of from the 13th century. So these are and we were so beautifully and warmly welcomed. I have spoken at numerous platforms about the welcome that we got from all the sacred quarters of Jerusalem, the Christian quarter, the Jewish quarter, and the Muslim quarter, and how Brother Eliyahu took us to all these places, explain everything, and it never seems real what is happening at this moment in Jerusalem. We couldn't even imagine that something could unfold after all this peace building. So that is something real concern, that in near future this doesn't erupt again, and the sacred spaces are not defiled, whatever the provocations are. So if that can be put forth in really clear words, I think that would be very, very meaningful of our years of building together this peace network around the world. And I'm sure it will be paid heed to by any of the world leaders if we collectively put this forth, inshallah. So I'll just recite the verses of the Quran of healing that and the prayer of peace, and then I close my remarks, because it's really, whenever I speak also, and I'd message also our brother John Remmer about a couple of days, and I could just remember the tears of John Remmer's daughter when we were together in that hall, and those tears were for real, because she is the one who's been working on ground with those people who are suffering, and I can't forget those tears. May we don't have to shed those tears anymore in the near future, inshallah, and all the hard work that people on ground are doing there, the peacemakers, the NGOs, the medical staff, the doctors, nurses, whoever are supporting the peace initiatives, may they be successful, inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا آتيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر صدق الله العظيم اللهم من كل شفاء اللهم من كل شفاء اللهم من كل شفاء اللهم يا دافيا بليات اللهم يا دافيا بليات اللهم يا دافيا بليات اللهم يا محمي الأمراض اللهم يا محمي الأمراض اللهم يا محمي الأمراض آمين 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 تقبل منا آمين. As we remember that in the Holy Quran Sharif, it's numerous times how it has been mentioned about the Bani Israel in the Surah Maryam, and the prophets from Hazrat Adam alayhi salam to Hazrat Moses, Aaron, Prophet Isa alayhi salam, and Prophet Muhammad. So these are all the prophets who have carried the light, and we all believe in them with utmost respect. And those tribes, or all the Bani Israel, or all the tribes who have been following them, they must also pay heed to the real teachings and practical life of such Ambiyas, the prophets. And they all lead to the light of guidance, inshallah. That's the prayers from Ajmer Sharif. Thanks, Brother Ben, for creating this space. Lots of prayers and blessings to you also and everybody here. And I also apologize if I exceeded my time and some words, because these emotions are common between all of us, and we really feel because we have walked together with peace on that sacred spaces, and now to see those same sacred spaces in just in the span of 2 years being filled with violence and cries, shouts, it's unimaginable. And we pray that we don't have to see it again, inshallah. Let's make a prayer that we don't have to see those images ever again. Ameen.
Amen. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your light. Thank you for your light. We have so many beautiful hearts and minds here to hear from. I do want to bring in Efrat, Sar Shalom, and the deep, prayerful, constant weaving for peace, Efrat, that you are holding with so many around the world, and just to bring in your voice at this time as we continue in this space.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, everyone. We are praying constantly, mornings and evenings. We are praying around the world. There is so much peace work that is done. I want you all to know it. And we are holding in our heart the sacred space. We want to remember, I would like to pray with us. That would be the best thing that I can do for today. We cannot judge anything, because this story of Isaac and Ismail is so ancient. My brothers, my sisters, I was praying today in the desert in Kumalan. I would like us all to pray together. Forgiveness, forgiveness, forgiveness. between Yitzhak and Ishmael, Isaac and Ismail. Forgiveness, brothers, brothers, brothers. Let us heal the land together. It is ours to walk on it, to serve the land, to serve our brothers and sisters. Forgiveness between brothers, forgiveness, forgiveness, forgiveness between brothers, Yitzhak, Ishmael, Ishmael, Yitzhak, Slicha, Slicha, forgiveness, forgiveness. God is one, we are one. God is one, we are one. God is one. Let the light make all fears and anger disappear. Let us remember that we are brothers. We are brothers from the same Father. There is one Father, it is God. Let us all unite. Let us remember. Let us remember. Let us remember. Let us not be in fear. Let us see the light. Let us see the light. Let us see and unite in one love, one God. Let us know our Father, our God. Let us know His holiness, His love, and His one peace. Let us deliver His one peace to all our sisters and brothers.
Thank you, Efrat. Thank you. We all share your prayer. All share your prayer. Muslims, Christians, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, people of the heart, people of goodwill, people of good faith. We all share your prayer together. Ambassador Anil, you are someone at the diplomatic global thought leader level who has done a lot of thinking and writing with a whole lifetime in diplomacy. And you're a peace ambassador for Unity Earth and for many others. We would love to hear your wisdom at this time.
Thank you, Ben. Om Shanti, Shalom, Assalamu Alaikum. All these just mean peace. Every day when we greet one another, when we wish, we are only looking for peace. And unfortunately, that peace defies us. And as my brother Salman said, that it has become so fragile that it breaks just at a drop of a hat. We have still not learned to live with one another. And that's what bothers me the most. Religion is an instrument for reaching to the higher level. It is not to fight with one another. It is a fight within. That's what I feel. And it is your personal space. But we all like to do something. But what is most bothersome in this time? And if you will see that before, generally West Asia is a region where there is always problem. There is always some hotspot or an issue that is going on. For some time, it was comparatively peaceful. We were seeing a lot of rapprochement, for example, between Iran and Saudi Arabia. That was unthinkable until recently. Between Turkey and Saudi Arabia, between Turkey and Egypt. Those who have been fighting with one another, trying to undermine the other. The Saudi and Qatar. So there was a lot of good things happening. Most importantly, I would say one contribution of the former US President Trump was to create these Abraham Accords, to bridge the deficit between Israel and the Arab world. That was very much needed. And from day one, and I want to tell you that in 1992, when India decided to establish diplomatic relations, I was dealing with that seat. And we had met President Arafat before that. And he told us, he said, I welcome it, this normalization with Israel, because India can perhaps be a bridge of peace between Israel and Palestine. That was 1992. We are nearly 30 years from there. And we are where we were. There have been umpteen attempts by everyone. But as long as the politics of religion, I would say, or the politics of opportunism does not go away, it is extremely difficult to create peace even at the people to people level. Because either there should be a great movement of people for peace. Because every Israeli I have met, every Palestinian Arab I have met, no one wants to fight. But still the fight happens. And it happens. And who dies out? Not the leaders like Hamas leaders or Netanyahu or others. It is the poor people. It is the civilians. It is the women. It's children who suffer. We lost one Indian woman to a Gaza rocket this time. It's first time I think it happened. In 2014, when it happened, I was posted in Jordan, and we had to evacuate so many Indian nationals from Gaza. It was an uphill task, I can tell you. So difficult. So we are seeing that it affects everyone. But first effect of these kind of skirmishes, for whatever reason they are, that they leave a near permanent scar on the psyche of the people. Because that's why I say, when our friend Gidon mentioned that this is a challenge to overcome hate and fear, because everybody is a loser in the game. No one gains. Politicians will come and go. They have come and gone. But even Israel had some leaders who wanted so much peace that they brought people together despite the problem. I feel that one more thing we have to do is to, perhaps it may sound not so reasonable or rational, but sometimes it helps to give up historical predilections, preconceived notions. I have lived in this land for 1,000 years. I have lived in this land for 3,000 years. My people lived there for so many years. Now land belongs to everyone. So does air, so does earth, so does sky. Let us be the citizens of the world. That is more important. But for the current situation, what I feel is most important is because this current youth, which is seeing this kind of a violence, will find it very difficult to overcome the hatred. And that will be a great task for organization like ours and the EcoPeace, which is working on the ground. How to convert hate into love and peace. That will be the biggest challenge for us once the ceasefire. No war lasts forever. It is going to end. If not today, tomorrow, when Netanyahu has achieved his objective, or the Hamas has become very popular now in Palestine. Hamas has to learn to understand that Israel is a reality. Palestinians have to understand that this is a country that's going to be there. We are no longer in 48. We are no longer in 1918 or 17. We forget about Sykes-Picot and everything. There is no end to referring to history and trying to justify one's act for a future generation. I think that it's difficult, very, very difficult to do that. We suffer in our part of the world. But at the same time, there's no other way. You have to rise from above, from the immediate. That is most important for us to do. And that is what we need to convey. The people, like today, everybody is tendering for saving their lives. The whole Middle East is currently in a very major, once again, in a major arson kind of a situation. So we have to deal with that, and the world has to deal with that. Now, I am surprised that the United Nations Security Council, its relevance is completely eroding very fast, because 300 of its resolutions have yielded no results. We have seen that. This time it has not been able to issue a statement. Forget about anything. India has done what it could. But it is not a major power which can mediate between the two sides. It is only the US today, unfortunately, or fortunately, it has always been there, which can put pressure or persuade. The first thing is to achieve the ceasefire. And once the ceasefire achieved, that is the right time to begin bringing all political people around to on the table to discuss, to arrive at a situation so that both the countries can live side by side in peace, hopefully. Even if not, they are sovereign nations. They will decide on the relations, but they will not fight like that. As long as you have this disadvantaged culture prevailing, you will continue to have these kind of fights. And as Salman Bhai said, that we build peace, we build instruments, we build institutions like schools, and they're bombed in no time, and we're back to square with greater fear, with greater hatred. And that's not the objective that we in the Unity Earth are looking for it. So I would strongly recommend that from our side, whatever little we can do post in the reconstruction phase of Gaza, that should be done. But at the same time, I think at this stage, we should have a signature campaign of peacemakers and write to both the leaders, write to the United Nations Security Council from our side, make our voice heard. And each one of us in our sphere of influence, try to convey that message. Not only for Middle East, peace is required everywhere, but this is the hotspot. We must tackle it fast. And I think this is very, very important. And I don't know, I mean, it will end, of course, in 2-3 days' time, there will be a ceasefire. Maybe 4 days, depending, because this time the objective is very different. It is than previous times, frankly. This time I find it as a political analyst that it is more to do with politics than with either religion or with the Palestine-Israel person. So I have written about it and I hold no grudge. But at the same time, I wish that we all should work together. We cannot just leave it like this. Can't abdicate our responsibility as human beings, more importantly. And we come from all around the world. And let's try to do that. Next month is our Unity Week. But before that, perhaps it'll be a good time to write to the President of the UN Security Council. The frustration of the UN today is that the United Nations itself is talking of its irrelevance, every member. So they are calling the UNGM meeting on Thursday, General Assembly meeting, to discuss this issue. Nobody is able to put pressure. Why? Only country that can put pressure is the USA. But they should be an active. They are a global power. They believe in human rights. Those American friends of ours who are there in this group may talk to their congressmen, their senators, try to put pressure on the US to be, at least for once, be an honest arbiter of peace. That is extremely important, in my view. I would not like to hijack this forum but these were my heartfelt views and no politics in this. I only say that we wish peace for everyone. Sarve bhavantu sukhne, sarve santu nirabhe.
Hari Om. Thank you so much, Ambassador Anil. We really are blessed to have your leadership with us. And I'm sure if you wanted to draft something that many of us would sign it, that could go to the UN. Many organizations, there are now close to 200 co-convening organizations for World Unity Week, and we could invite all of them to sign it. Perhaps it's something that you and the directors of EcoPeace could draft for something to go to the United Nations to pass a resolution. That sounds like a very sound thing that we can do at that level, alongside the beautiful suggestion of working to support schools on the ground, as Gidon has offered. Now, Eliyahu is with us, but he has asked that we kind of complete the religions that we go through. We started with Gidon as a Jewish person, and we've heard from Salman Chishty and as a Muslim, and Efrat is a spiritual person of a universal conviction, and Ambassador Anil as a Hindu. So let's invite a Christian perspective, and then perhaps a Buddhist one before we come to you, Eliyahu. So somebody who knew a bit about peace in the Middle East was St. Francis, of course, who did some beautiful work bringing together Muslims and Christians at that time of great conflict. I mean, this is the crusade at the time of tremendous conflict. So Patrick Carolan is the former executive director for the Franciscan Action Network. And from a Christian perspective, Patrick, we'd love to hear, maybe just a few comments for you before we hear from Eliyahu.
I'm sure, and thank you very much. And thank you all for the great reflections. As Ben had mentioned, I was the executive director of the Franciscan Action Network, and some of you may have heard this story, but about 800 years ago, there was a young preacher in a small town in Italy, and he heard a calling from God. And the calling was, and this is in the middle of the Fifth Crusade. And the calling was for him to go and try to bring about peace. So he traveled with a companion to Damietta, Egypt, which is where the fighting was happening at this point in time. And he first went to the Christian armies and tried to preach to them, but he wasn't having much success. So then he left and he traveled, found his way into the Muslim encampment. And, you know, as was in the time, he probably should have been killed right away. Some say that was what his wish was to become a martyr. Instead, he managed to find his way into and get an audience with the Sultan Al-Kamil, who was the leader of the Muslim armies at the time. And they became friends. He spent several weeks there with the Sultan and talking to him, meeting with other people. He began praying with the Muslims, something that Christians would consider a mortal sin to pray with Muslims. And then he left and went back to Assisi, the town he was from. And what happened was, after he left, shortly after he left, the Muslim army encircled the Christian army. And the generals that were working with the Sultan Al-Kamil urged the Sultan to slaughter the Christian army and said that, you know, it's time to put an end to this. We have to go in and massacre these. We have them right where we want. Instead, the Sultan each day sent food and water into the Christian armies and granted them safe passage to return home. And it really brought about an end to the Crusades. It did a couple of things. It brought about an end to the Crusades because the Christian Pope and leaders could not raise an army anymore. Partly why they couldn't raise an army anymore was that Francis went back to Assisi and began a whole mission of nonviolence and peace. And he started preaching peace, and he started urging people to not sign up, to not become soldiers, to promote a message of peace. So I share that story because, you know, 800 years later, we're in the same position that we were in. And as Pope Francis said in his encyclical Laudato Si', it only takes a few people with hope to bring about change. And we are those people with hope. Sometimes we have to do more than just hope. We have to also have action, which some of you are suggesting. But we also have to remember one of the other things Francis did when he went back, I mean, he founded the Order of Franciscans, he rewrote the rules. Franciscans pray 5 times a day now. He learned that from the Muslims. So he began to realize that there really wasn't any difference between the Muslims and the Christians, that we worship the same God. We maybe worship a little differently, and we maybe have different styles of prayer, but we worship the same God, and we're all part of the one. And he began teaching that. And, you know, Francis of Assisi is now probably the most beloved Christian saint, and held in esteem right up there with Jesus. That's not how he started out, but that's how he ended. So I would really just urge us to keep Francis in mind. And if anybody's interested in learning more about the story, I had the just absolute joy and pleasure a couple of years ago of working with a Muslim film company and producing a docudrama on the story of St. Francis and his encounter with the Sultan. It's called The Sultan and the Saint. I'm happy to share it with folks. It's an hour-long docudrama. I got to travel all around the world, meeting with Muslim and Christian leaders and telling the story of Francis and his encounter with the Sultan. We need to tell those stories. We need to tell those stories over and over and over, because peace can happen. Peace won't happen if we constantly at each other's throats. Peace will happen when we enter into relationships with each other and start listening to each other's stories. So thank you. I'll leave it there. Peace and all good.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Thank you for bringing the story of St. Francis. Is a very relevant one to this moment and to that land. And not just perhaps the most favorite Christian saint, but beloved by, I think, much of the world. Thank you so much. I want to invite Janice Dooley to offer some words, and we will come to Eliyahu. A very important, Eliyahu's perspective is very relevant to this. But I wanted to ask you, Janice, just to offer your reflections as we come to this place.
Thank you, Ben. what's been coming to me through the conversations this morning is the central nature of how interconnected we all are. And I feel that needs to be a theme that underpins it. And if the religions could come together to realize the evolutionary impulse that we're feeling, and an understanding that God is not an old man in the sky that belongs to my religion or yours. It is life. God is life. God is love. God is light. And anything we do to one, we do to the whole. And I wonder whether with this coming up now as a theme for Unity Week, we could really relate all the contributions to an essential message, that it is love that unites. Hate, fear, anger, they divide. And we cannot live anymore. We share the same earth, the same air, the same water, the same humanity. We are one world. So I just call for collaboration, for unity, and for trust in the overall. Thank you, Ben.
Beautiful, beautiful. And if enough of us are saying that around the world, and if enough organizations and enough groups and enough diverse people are rising together with that message, Janice, then that can be and will be the change that we're all seeking, not just in the Middle East, but all around the world, and not just for interhuman fractures and violence, but for our very way of life and the way that we live on the earth. I do want to invite Pramaha Bunchwe Duje. We're very honored to have you with us from Chiang Mai, a leading Buddhist scholar and teacher and activist, interfaith activist. And it's wonderful to have you with us. And what are your reflections or offerings to this circle, Pramaha Bunchwe Duje? We unmute you. Let's unmute you. Can you unmute yourself, Ajahn? Okay. Yes, you are.
Yes. Thank you, and good evening and greeting from Chiang Mai, Thailand to all. It is very, I feel that it is very sorry that we have faced, this kind of, apart from the pandemic, we are having another man-made, violence, which is in Israel and in Gaza, where we have been last time to the Holy Land. What I have noted as a global citizen, this violence caused not only the victim in Gaza and is in Israel. I mean that not only the Israeli and Palestinian people are suffering. Thai people who work in Israel are also affecting. I have heard from the news that there are two people from Thailand who work in Israel, die in this violence, and many more injured. So this, of course, the violence happened there in the Middle East, but it affects to the whole world, as many people have said. So in the Buddhist point of view, the Buddha mentioned in the Dhammapada, saying that nahi verena verani samantita kutachanang averena cha sammanti esa dhammo sanantano, which means at any time in this world, hatred never ceases by hatred. Mm-hmm. But through non-hatred, it ceases. this is an eternal law. So I finally would like just to pray for those for the victim, and also to support people, especially our group, to do something, to bring peace into this region by saying, Sukho Bhuttanang Upato Sukha Satamate Sana Sukha Sangatsa Samaki Samakanang Tapo Sukho Khadyo Seto Janeta Samingye Kota Patichayino Vichaja Bano So Seto Deva Manuse Ivadapatia Chicho Ratima Bhati Santima Sanato Gadiyo Tapati Chayi Tapati Brahmano Natazaba Mahora Tanguto Tapati Tejasa Arogaya Paramara Pasantuti Paramantanang Visasa Paramayati Nibanang Paramang Sukhang.
Satu, Satu, Satu. Thank you so much, Ajahn. That beautiful wisdom and teaching of the Buddha that hatred can never stop hatred, and only love can cease the hatred. That's a powerful truth expressed. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So Eliyahu McLean, you have been on the ground there for many years, and doing incredible work, peace on the ground with Palestinians and with Jews and people of the rainbow, if you like, that you bring together. I've been blessed to be with you on a Gaza border reality tour that you hosted and ran, and I've seen up close your credentials of grassroots peace building. So we're delighted to have you with us, and we'd love to hear, particularly at this critical and urgent time, your reflections and wisdom.
Thank you, Holy Brother Ben. I appreciate. I don't know if I have any great wisdom after all of these very special global ambassadors of peace before me. But just a little, I'd like to share a few short words of reflection on our situation in the Holy Land. So first, especially after just hearing from our brother Pramaha from Thailand, just to keep things in perspective, what's going on in the last days between Israelis and Palestinians, between Israel government and the Hamas government and the rockets and the responses. This is just, one latest round in a skirmish and clashes. And if we look in the global picture, we have conflicts in Myanmar, we have in Congo, we have many conflict zones around the world that don't make the headlines. Somehow that's forgotten. We are the focus here in Israel and Palestine, I think, because the family of Abraham, Isaac, and Ishmael are an archetype of the human family that so many people connect to and relate to. So 1.5 billion Muslims, of course, relate to Al-Aqsa and the Palestinian plight. And many Christians relate to Palestinians and Israelis, and the Jewish people around the world, and friends of Israel and friends of Palestine across the planet relate. Well, it's a tiny, if you look on the map, we're a tiny pinpoint in the whole globe. And yet what happens in Jerusalem, we see has ripple effects. In some ways, Jerusalem is the heart of the world. This tiny, a neighborhood dispute between a few renters and a municipal board who are trying to kick out some people from their houses. It's not just a little dispute in Sheikh Jarrah. It becomes a national dispute, and it becomes a global issue. And what happens in Jerusalem and Gaza affects, really triggers around the world. It triggers around the world an outpouring of sympathy and heartfelt solidarity with peoples from the human family that are victimized by violence. So I just want to keep that in perspective, that and for Brother Chishty, for those of us who have been on the front lines for many years, this is not the first time that there have been clashes on Al-Aqsa Mosque, not the first time there have been rockets fired from Gaza into Israel. It's not the first time there have been tensions between the brothers of Abraham. And we're in this for the long haul. The role of peace builders and peacemakers is, I would, not to say like Gidon that we have failed, I'm saying is that we have to dig in our heels, and our work is just really beginning. This is an ancient land and an ancient connection of peoples from all faiths and all backgrounds. And there's so much attachment and so much passion when it comes to Jerusalem and the holy places, especially. It's understandable that globally we'll feel a ripple, both for the positive and the negative. If you look at the word Jerusalem in the Hebrew, in Arabic, of course, Jerusalem is Al-Quds, the holy. And how can we really call the name Al-Quds, the holy city, if it's not just about a holy rock or holy buildings or a place where a temple once stood or Muhammad ascended to heaven? It's also we the people have to treat each other with holiness, with dignity, with respect. In Hebrew, we say Yerushalayim, and Yeru means we will see, and Shalayim is actually the double form of the word Shalom. So our tradition teaches us, as the Islamic and Christian tradition, the Abrahamic traditions, that there are two Jerusalems. There's the heavenly Jerusalem and there's the earthly Jerusalem. So when you guys ascended to the Temple Mount, those of you who were in the Holy Land and had a beautiful prayer and experienced a moment of the heavenly Jerusalem, the beauty connecting so close to that heavenly stone. Now, what is underneath that Dome of the Rock? That is the epicenter of the conflict right now and the attachment. There's a stone there, and on that stone it said that Abraham had nearly sacrificed Isaac. And also on that stone is where is called the Even Shtia, the foundation stone of the world. This is like really from creation was said to be birthed from this particular place. So Abraham and Isaac, and then there was the first temple and the second temple. And then there was Muhammad, who ascended, according to Islamic tradition, on his night journey from that stone up and down, negotiating with Allah. First, the directive was from above that the new Muslim religion needs to pray 50 times a day. He managed to bargain it down to 5 times a day. But there's like a deep history and attachment to that very stone of all the Abrahamic traditions. And we see now that it's also a potential to trigger division and separation. But if we go back to its source, that stone is also the point of unity. What happened at that stone is the point where we can say this is the messianic vision of an end of conflict and a coming together in peace and harmony emerges from that very space. So you tasted a piece of the heavenly Jerusalem, and on the heavenly Jerusalem there is already unity, not just between Israel and Palestine, but all of humanity. But we see, and you see, the problems of the earthly Jerusalem, and the problems of the earthly Jerusalem are what you're reading in today's headlines and for the last 9 and 10 days especially. But it's our job as peacemakers to try to bridge that gap between the heavenly and the earthly Jerusalem, to help try to fix the problems, to help the wounded family of Abraham. You know that it's, in the last few days, about 3,000 rockets have been fired from Gaza into Israel. And like we heard, it's not just Israeli Jews who have lost their lives. We had 2 Thai workers. We had a caretaker from India. Also, there was a Muslim 14-year-old girl, a Muslim Arab peace activist from a town next to Lod, who was also hit by a rocket. Israeli planes also going back to try to stop the source of the rocket fire in Gaza. Hundreds of civilians there. By the way, I call my friends and family, I call them family because the late founder of my organization, Jerusalem Peacemakers, Sheikh Abdulaziz Bukhari, Allah Yerhamu, of blessed memory, his daughter, till today, lives in Gaza City. And her husband, I was there with them when they got engaged. I was there with them mourning when their father passed away. They're like family. So whatever happens in Gaza affects me, not just as an Israeli, but as a human being. So I agree with Brother Chishty that we have to honor all the holy places, especially the Haram al-Sharif and the Temple Mount. But keep in mind, you know, you see images that are forwarded, videos, but there's a context, and there's a before and an after. And yes, police going in with rubber coated bullets, chasing demonstrators, it's horrific and it's wrong. And I can agree that's a painful image, but also gathering rocks right at that spot to throw down just next to the Dome of the Rock is the Western Wall. And Israeli Jewish worshipers directly below can also be hit by rocks from below. So there is a context. It's happened before. So there is a context. I'm not rationalizing and not excusing. There needs to be peace and no violence, not only in that sacred mountain called Al-Haram al-Sharif, the Temple Mount, but also the whole Holy Land and the whole world. We need to stop the violence, and we need to come together and heal the traumas and the wounds of our past. Part of the challenge is that we have so many traumas, especially the people of Palestine and the people of Israel. We have past traumas that close our hearts to see the pain that we inflict on each other. And we forget that we're one family. We forget, we get caught in the illusion that we're separate. So that separateness, it's not, people say, well, maybe it's Benjamin Netanyahu trying to hold on to power. Or others say it's about Hamas trying to gain political points to be the true representative representing justice for the Palestinians. But really, I see it as a greater, you know, the force of fear and separation. It doesn't mean that Yahya Sinwar, the head of Hamas, or Benjamin Netanyahu, they're just symbols. It could be any other person, you understand, in that role, doing that position. Those are the ones that have the names now. So it's not just about Netanyahu or Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas in Gaza. It's about a deeper dynamic of trauma that goes back generations, and trauma that has not healed. So I have said on our forums, rather than choosing one side as being a greater victim or competing with suffering, Israelis or Palestinians, let us focus, I would say all of us, love, light, and healing for all the wounded family of Abraham, Israelis and Palestinians. Focus love and light and wisdom into the minds and the hearts, not only of the political leaders of Israel and Palestine, but to all of the UN and the European leaders and the President Biden and all of those who are now actively engaging behind the scene to help the two sides reach a ceasefire. Remember, the day is going to be probably tomorrow or the next day when there's a ceasefire signed. That is when the work of the peace builders again will start over. We don't give up. We have to go again to all of the victims and help them to bury the dead, to mourn their losses. And I say our losses because it's my friends and family who are right on the Gaza border. It's where I lived for many years. It's my friends and family in Gaza because the Palestinians are my family as well. They're no different. We're actually one family. So I would just say and ask all of you on this call if we could just maybe just in your own hearts, just rather than say I'm gonna show solidarity of one side or another, just say those are the children of Abraham in the heart of a holy land, and that holy land has seen many blood and crisis. Remember, the Crusades happened in the Holy Land. Remember, there were temples that were destroyed, not by Muslims, they were destroyed by Romans, they were destroyed by Assyrians. We have 1948 war, the 1967 war, the Lebanon war, There's so many layers of bloodshed and trauma that the role of the peace builder, and I believe of the global unity family, is simply to, you know, to send love, light, unity, focused healing for those that need specific families who have experienced injustice, who have experienced displacement, who have experienced loss of lives, to help them to heal, and on a greater level to, you know, to urge, you know, the world leadership to get involved, but in a higher way, not just resorting to the political solutions, but also the spiritual solutions. Because why has the political process always failed? And this is my belief as a religious peace builder, is because we've left the religion and spiritual dimension of the peace process out. All of the secular politicians from Washington and Europe, Israel and Palestine said those spiritual dimensions need to be left out. And then we have Jewish extremists and Muslim extremists who are then tapping into that religious message if they're left out of the process. We need to bring in the solutions that are found in our faiths, in the Bible, in the Torah, in the Quran, in the Buddhist scriptures, in the Hindu scriptures. Bring in the wisdom from our faith traditions to actually get into the nitty-gritty and apply to how this thing should be solved, and not just rely on a secular Western concept of let's just bring our diplomats to Washington and name a peace process after Oslo or Annapolis, Maryland, but you know, base it in our faith, in the wisdom that the prophets brought in years past. All this wisdom we carry with us. We read it, we study it, we pray from it. How come it's not relevant to what's happening today? It's very relevant. That's my understanding and my belief. And I'm actually in touch with sheikhs and rabbis and Christian leaders as we speak, who are saying, okay, in this time of the rockets, right, our time is to identify and to show solidarity with our immediate circle. So for me, it's an Israeli Jew. I'm going to first worry about my own neighbor and my own family member who might have been traumatized or hit by a rocket. But the moment that the ceasefire is signed, then we branch out from our particular kind of national and tribal identity and go back to the universal and the human family archetype, that we're all not just the children of Abraham, but the children of Adam and Eve, the children of Noah, and we go back to the children of Adam and Eve, the human family.
Okay, thank you, Eliyahu. Thank you. It sounds like you've got the human family also coming in to the room there. That we appreciate that.
Yeah, I've got 5 kids and a wife who just came home, so I'm holding lots of spaces here. He's making at many levels.
We really deeply appreciate you coming and sharing your on the ground perspective, and the perspective is very, I think, a beautiful one in the sense of getting back to the heart of the traditions. I do think leadership matters. I think leadership does matter, and we can hold our leaders accountable. Certainly, I'm not an expert, but it seemed under Yitzhak Rabin that the peace process was moving forward in a way that it isn't at the moment. So I think there's something around leadership which is important here as well. We want to honor the time which we had set and try and close in the next 15, 20 minutes. I definitely want to hear maybe a response from all of this from you, Gidon, and maybe some invitations to practical steps forward over the next few weeks building up to World Unity Week. But John Raymer, who's such a core aspect of World Unity Week and is a Jewish man, very passionate about peace and about his daughter. Obviously, he's there on the front lines as well. Eliyahu, you met Alison. Really want to give you, John, an opportunity to speak here. And of course, Shelley and Jan, who are right there in Jerusalem as well, who may have quite a very different perspective on this. But this is the point of us coming together, is to hear this whole spectrum of perspectives and find out how we can show up together to be even whatever small part of the solution we may be able to be together, but at least to try something is what I think we're all feeling. So, John, we'd love to hear your what's in your heart right now.
Yeah. Well, I grieve. We're all hurting. And we know that hurting people hurt people. My daughter Allison went on the birthright trip. She's a Jewish girl from America who's now an Israeli citizen who spent the last 10 years living in the West Bank, who's recognizes the injustice and recognizes that Palestinian lives matter. This needs to be different this time. This cannot be managed anymore. We need to solve this. This is ours to do. If we're going to do something, this is the time to do it. And I know all the conflicting interpretations and I respect them all, but they've led us here. The only way out is through. So in the spirit of World Unity Week, I say, let's do something. Let's get behind the people on the front lines, like what Gidon is suggesting and what Eliyahu is suggesting, and honor the fact that this needs to be different this time. This is becoming too ordinary. This is becoming too much, yeah, this is it one more time, same old thing. I'm not okay with that. Maybe having my daughter there over these last 10 years has intensified my appreciation, my visits there. And she's marrying a Muslim Palestinian who I love. And that family is my family. So I say this is the moment for World Unity Week to really do something. And the challenge to be creative is ours, to actually get over this sense of powerlessness, feeling like we can't do anything. So I think it's different this time. I really do. I see a sentiment in the United States recognizing that this idea that somehow the Palestinians' lives don't matter as much, that's just old school. That's got to stop. And it may not be clear that it's felt that way, but I'll tell you, that's been a story, an old story. And the way we interpret these things do matter. So I'm thrilled that we are here together in this conversation with love and respect, but our leadership does matter. And we need to find a way to get through this and actually not just manage this conflict, but actually solve this conflict. So I'm in, and we want all voices to be heard, and we want to unify and find the strategies needed to turn what we have into what we need. You know, there's a comic in the United States, Trevor Noah, and he brought the subject up. I give him credit, from The Daily Show. And he used the metaphor of just, you know, when the big brother and the little brother fight, the big brother needs to show some restraint. And for me, it's just clear that the force and the might of the Israelis is tremendous. And I just want to say, and I know that I'm going to piss people off, but I'll say this is not Jewish for me. The way I was taught to be a Jew, I'd never want to believe that I would fall victim to treating people this way, and somehow people that were victims become the oppressors. This is not okay. So I don't claim to have any answer, but I know I'm in it, and I'm willing to do the work that I need to do to find a way through this. We must end this conflict. This has to be our job. I pray for everybody. But I'm willing to get up in the middle of the night because there's nothing more important. If we could demonstrate that we can, in fact, solve this conflict, it would be a gift to the world. May it be so. I love you, Ben Bowler. Thank you so much for making Unity Earth a viable and thriving expression of world unity. What could be more important right now? May peace prevail on earth. Now let's do something.
Well, thank you, Brother John. I know I speak for many when just saying we feel your heart and your commitment and your strength, and the call to do something and rally around those on the ground. You know, before we close today, I want to hear from Gidon. What can we do? How can we get behind you? We had a brilliant suggestion, I think, from Ambassador Anil to approach the Security Council. You know, there's a school idea, and there will be other things that we can bring this collective energy and commitment to supporting you. You're on the ground and offering solutions, as you know, in his ways, Eliyahu. So how can we gather around and do that? We want to come to you, Gidon, and we will close on time. But Shelley and Jan just really wanted to give you an opportunity to speak as to, you know, what are you seeing and what are you feeling and what do you kind of offer that we could do to be a part of the solution for those that are seeing this or a part of this and wanting to do something. What would you offer them, Shelley?
Thank you. So, someone that has lived in South Africa and in Israel, I've been deeply plagued a lot of my life by the abuse of power. And by the abuse of power in South Africa, by the abuse of power in Israel, and by the abuse of power everywhere, and by the abuse of power within myself. And I think that what we're seeing in Israel is horrific. I think it's a symptom of a collective disease where we are in a consciousness of domination, of separateness, of privilege, of exploitation. And it's everywhere. And the fact is that Israel rallies, somehow manages to bring a lot of attention to that very imbalance, to that disease that I think is everywhere. I have, as much as I am preoccupied with what's going on in Israel, I just heard what's going on in Colombia around the indigenous peoples and how much is not heard about what's going on there and in so many other places. And I'm cautious about putting Israel at the center of, as the only center that we focus on, because I think it kind of perpetuates the illusion that the problem is mainly here. And I think that it's very much here. And I think that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is fueled by a lot of interests that are hidden, including the military-industrial complex that, and many other forces that fuel the conflict. And I think that in order to do something around Israel, we have to get to the roots of that persecutor, victim, savior dynamic. And I really am with all of you in what you've said in terms of having to really hold the whole in our hearts. And I think the issue is how to get to the roots of that domination issue. And I think that as long as we, within ourselves, anywhere in the world, collude with domination of other people, of the animals, of other species, of Mother Earth, of the water, we're going to be fighting an uphill battle because we're not getting to the roots of it. We're constantly trying to deal with symptoms. And so I really feel very strongly around, ultimately we have to get beyond these political identities and the religious identities to focus on our common humanity and our common species with all the community of life, and to recognize that we are 99.9% water and that the source of life is water, and that I so much appreciate what Gidon is doing around eco-peace, because we have to focus on that which is beyond our personal identities. And when we start focusing on healing the water, healing the land, and ensuring that all humans and all animals have access to clean air and pure water, and food and all of those practical suggestions, we will reorient ourselves towards thinking and feeling and acting peace. And so being preoccupied with how to deal with these, whose conflict does one focus on first? Who does one start to help? It's been part of my life story, is trying to see, well, how do I support? And from all of that, my deepest learning is that the best thing I can do is to offer something that brings us, unifies us all, where all of life benefits and has the vibration of deep peace, because it helps our consciousness cleanse itself, and it prioritizes the most vulnerable, and it reorients all systems towards something that is life-giving. And yes, to coming together in unity to end all of this. And thank you for bringing this. And I hope that just offers a different perspective slightly.
Beautiful, beautiful, Shelley. Thank you. Thank you so much. Brother Jan, did you want to add something?
Thank you, Ben. Just a small thing that could be a big thing, and that is, what can we do? And we're talking about World Unity Week here. And I think the biggest thing we can do, that is almost like it's the elephant in the room, is to unite the world. If that becomes our collective mission and focus, to unite the world for a thriving world for all of life. We have a vision, we have a purpose. This week could be dedicated to really exploring the ways and amplifying the ways through which, you're talking about 200 organizations. In 1 or 2 degrees of separation, how many millions of people are we talking about there, right? And if this becomes our collective mission to really now, at this time, focus on unity, how can we come together effectively as a human species to overcome these old concepts, these old patterns, and heal the trauma? That for me feels like that's doing something. That's what we are here to do. We're here to unite the world, not just these circles, but really how can we make it global? And I think we can do it. I know we can do it. And the question is how, and let's put that question at the center of the circle, because when we realize that how, we know that we all have amazing creativity and we all have so many solutions. And when we put that in the center of the circle, we can make it happen. There's nothing we can't do. So that common vision, that common purpose, a thriving world for all of life, let us unite the world around that, and we can make it happen. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Powerful call and statements of invitation and belief, which I think is resonating with everybody. Thank you so much, Shelley and Jan, for sharing that. And we're hopeful, actually, I had a conversation today about somebody who may be bringing Paul Hawken to World Unity Week, and somebody who's catalogued these tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of civil society organizations. So there is great hope in connecting these and coming around a shared purpose. So we want to close. I just want to thank everybody for your deep listening. As we've heard so many different perspectives, Anna Marie, and wisdom from many different traditions. What a blessing to be in this space, and very, very grateful for listening to the great wisdom, and thank you all for your deep listening. As we close, Gidon, maybe there are some practical follow-ups about what we can do to make a difference over these next 4 weeks. Building up John's passionate declaration of his commitment is shared by me and by many of us. And I know, Salman is here from India with Anil, and so many others are in this and on this journey. What can we do to really make a difference over these next 4 or 5 weeks?
Thank you, Ben. I mean, I think there's not one thing. I think there's many things. And I think that what I would invite people to consider coming from the conversations are one on the leadership side, and I totally agree that we must reject the notion that this conflict can just be managed. We need to work towards solving the conflict and demanding leadership from our own leaders here in the region and from the international community. And I'd like to suggest, building on the statement that was suggested, that a focus, maybe not the only, but a focus of that statement is to solve the water issues between Israelis and Palestinians. And we've had some very fruitful conversations with the Biden administration on moving forward on water justice in our region. Most recently, also with some other global players that at the moment I won't mention them. So we actually see a momentum on moving forward on solving the Israeli-Palestinian water issue as a priority that brings more clean water into every home. I think nothing could be more meaningful than that, and we're seeing a greater political will towards that issue. We also see the Palestinian Authority or elements, leadership there coming and saying, let's solve water. We're hearing those voices. We're hearing more of those voices also on the Israeli side. There's a momentum. Let's build on it. Let's show that we can solve something that is so critical to both peoples. Excuse me. So on the sort of the statement and the demand from political leadership, I would like to see, and I'd be happy to work with the team to get such a statement out. And then at the same time, let's touch the hearts of people on the ground. And again, I think it could be through water, but by doing something on both sides that physically improves the reality on the ground. So that's my suggestion, and it's not exclusive. We need to be inclusive. And I dedicate my time to work together with so many people that have participated today to move those two issues forward, and other issues that others will be suggesting as well. So thank you, Ben, for organizing this really important and essential gathering that starts to do the hard work of repair, of heal, of justice. I mean, that's a word that is so imperfect, but is so necessary in our work. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you, Gidon. We really are with you and EcoPeace very in a cellular way, whatever we can do. And again, there is this spectrum from the spiritual to the strategic and everything in between. They're connected, and they're very powerfully connected during our pilgrimage with the Holy Land Living Water. And it's going to take all of us showing up together as a rising force that is both has the spiritual power and also the strategic nous, which is where somebody like Ambassador Anil is such an incredible instrument. So Ambassador Anil, I think we'll connect you directly to Gidon about this idea of creating something that can be signed by thousands and certainly hundreds of organizations to go to the Security Council at a timeline of your choosing. And I think that's one thing. And then working on the ground for a water, for tangible water benefits on both sides of the conflict here, I think is a perfect solution. Friends, we don't have any more time to hear from all of you. I'd love to hear more from and thoughts from Robert and Sue and and Edita and many others, but and Rodrigo in Mexico. But I think in the interest of honoring the time, and Alan, let us begin to close. We'll connect Anil to Gidon and follow that forward.
Yes.
And Gidon, however we can stay connected to your team about the water issue, we definitely want to do that. Once we close, I will leave the room open for 15-20 minutes if anybody wants to stay and talk further. Once we'll stop the recording. Ambassador Anil, did you have any final words before I throw to Anna Marie for the closing?
Well, thank you very much. It was a wonderful meeting, although under a very difficult time that we are talking about. This was not supposed to be that, but unfortunately we have to handle it first. And I'll connect with Brother Gidon on this, and we'll draft something together, which we may issue at the earliest as soon as possible. On the other hand, I was just wondering, if it is possible that organizations like not only EcoPeace, but if there are some which are working to heal the people, whether in Gaza or in Israel itself, if those organizations, if they're part of our group, can come up with some specific projects which can be focused by Unity Earth in due course. So that could be perhaps considered by us, maybe in the run-up or maybe later on, to flag what can be done, because at the end of the day, it is the people to people that will ensure the peace. So not the politicians at the end of the day. So I think we need to work with that. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Thank you, Ambassador Anil. It is indeed people to people. And I might say, learn and relearn and practice how to love. How do we do that in all these difficult contexts? And if we can solve it, or if we can add to it, and if we can bring that unity and go beyond the symptoms, go on a deeper level, bringing in also that what makes our hearts sing, and that includes religion, that includes spirituality and love for all. If we could be really practicing that, putting that into practice in World Unity Week and in all the projects and programs, and specifically look for those that are going beyond these dynamics of polarities and coming to the root cause of how we can bring that together. I think that would already be a big contribution. And just to know that our commitment is not just one World Unity Week. We are going to be continuing the journey into the caravans, the Peace Weekend, into the December solstice, into World Unity Week next year, because it's a learning journey. And Jude Caravan teaches us the world is fractal. So wherever we can really come up with some heart-centered solutions, let that spread out, let that ripple out, and let us indeed, Gidon and all of those in the heart of the fire, be supported by our love and by our hope, and by our practice, and by acknowledging that we have that in ourselves as well, and that if we solve that even in the smallest detail, that already is contributing to a big field of love and light. So that's what I would love us to be doing, and whatever way we can serve as World Unity Week team that is gathering together with all of you, because in each and every one of us, World Unity Week is within, and please share with us and stay showing up, making it real, connecting, and lighting up our hearts in kindness.